All right, before we jump into all the dynasties, conflicts, inventions, and plot twists, we need to set the stage properly. Imagine this part as the opening map in a video game that shows you who owns what, who's powerful, and where all the big players are standing. So let's go back to the year 1000. And no, the world wasn't dark, gloomy, or crawling with people who thought the Earth was flat. In fact, if you zoomed out and took a global snapshot, the Islamic world was one of the brightest, busiest, and most connected regions on Earth. Geographically, it stretched wild distances, from Spain in the west, where the Umayyads of Cordoba were running this sophisticated, multicultural powerhouse, all the way to the Indian subcontinent, where the Ghaznavids were rising in the east. In between, you had the Abbasids in Baghdad, still the symbolic heart of the Muslim world, even if their political power was kind of like a famous actor who isn't getting movie roles anymore. The Buyids had more control than the Abbasids at this point, and in Egypt, the Fatimids were building their own rival empire, with Cairo as the new cultural hotspot. And here's why this year matters. 1000 CE sits right at the moment when the old order is giving way to new forces. Turks are moving into the picture. Trade routes are booming. Scholars are writing books that will survive for centuries. Basically, the Islamic world isn't just large, it's evolving. And culturally, this region is where the world's smartest people kept showing up. Baghdad still had the House of Wisdom. Think of it as the ancient version of Google headquarters, but with astronomers, physicians, mathematicians, and philosophers walking around. Libraries held hundreds of thousands of books. Scholars were translating Greek texts, studying Indian mathematics, and writing original works that Europe would later depend on. So when we say Islamic world around 1000, don't imagine one big monolithic blob. It's a mosaic of dynasties, cultures, languages, and ideas, but the overall vibe is clear. It's wealthy, intellectually alive, globally connected, and about to enter one of the most dynamic stretches in its entire history. And now that you have the map in your mind, we can actually start the journey. Because the next part, this is when the Islamic Golden Age hits its peak. The Golden Age didn't just end at 1000 CE. It didn't suddenly shut down like a laptop running out of battery. In fact, the engines of knowledge were still roaring, and some of the most influential breakthroughs were happening after the year 1000. Let's break this down in a simple human way. Imagine walking into a world where the smartest thinkers from different cultures, Greek, Persian, Indian, Arab, Central Asian, North African, are all hanging out in the same intellectual coffee shop. They're debating medicine, solving equations, observing stars, writing encyclopedias, and for them, this wasn't a golden age, it was just Tuesday. Take Ibn Sina, Avicenna if you're feeling fancy. This guy was basically the Einstein of the medieval world. His medical book, The Canon of Medicine, didn't just influence the Islamic world, Europe literally used it as their medical textbook for about 600 years. That's like writing a biology book today, and humans in the year 2600 are still studying from it. And while Ibn Sina was dissecting the mysteries of the human body, over in the world of optics, you had Ibn al-Haytham, arguably the first true experimental scientist. He wasn't just throwing ideas in the air, he was testing them, observing them, challenging them. He literally laid down the scientific method before the scientific method was even, a thing. Then there's al-Biruni, a walking encyclopedia with legs. He studied astronomy, geography, anthropology, mathematics, and probably 10 other things just because he was bored. He measured the Earth's radius with such accuracy that modern scientists looked at his numbers and went, "Wait, he did that with what tools?" And don't picture these scholars as isolated geniuses hiding in dusty rooms. They were part of a huge ecosystem. Libraries stacked with 500,000 books, observatories with massive instruments. universities called madrasas that taught everything from theology to math. Arabic was basically the international language of science. Just like English dominates research papers today, back then, if you wanted your work read across continents, you wrote it in Arabic. And because trade routes were so active, stretching from China to Spain, ideas were spreading faster than rumors do on social media. The coolest part? This wasn't only about science. Culture was booming too. Poetry, philosophy, architecture, calligraphy, you name it. Cities like Cordoba, Baghdad, Cairo, and Nishapur were buzzing with creativity. They were the cultural hubs you'd want to visit if time travel was a thing. So when people say the Golden Age, don't imagine some frozen moment in the 800s or 900s. Think of it as a wave that kept rolling well into the centuries after 1000. And this momentum, this giant scientific and cultural engine, didn't just stay inside the Islamic world. It was about to influence Europe in ways that would literally shape the Renaissance. But before that connection happens, something else changes inside the Islamic world. New players enter the game, powerful ones, and that's what we're diving into next. All right, now here's where things get even more interesting. Because the Islamic world wasn't just sitting on its scientific achievements, it was plugged in to one of the biggest and busiest trade networks human history had seen up to that point. Seriously, imagine the medieval world like a giant spider web. Every important thread, every major route for money, goods, ideas, and people somehow passed through Islamic lands, and that wasn't an accident. The geography basically handed them front-row seats to global traffic. Let's take a little trip together. If we're starting in China, following the Silk Road west, guess what? We're passing through cities filled with Muslim merchants, scholars, and caravan guides. If we head south into the Indian Ocean, boom! Muslim sailors are there, navigating with insane accuracy thanks to their knowledge of monsoon winds and improved astrolabes. If we cross the Sahara northward from West Africa, gold from kingdoms like Mali flows into Islamic markets in North Africa and then into Europe. This network wasn't small. This was global logistics before DHL existed. And it wasn't just about buying and selling random stuff. It was the exchange of technology, science, crops, and culture. For example, things like citrus fruits, sugarcane, cotton, and rice became global crops because Muslim traders moved them around like influencers, dropping new trends. Papermaking? That came from China, got perfected in places like Samarkand and Baghdad, and then spread into Europe all through Islamic trade routes. Even words we use today, like algebra, algorithm, chemistry, coffee, and sugar, hit European dictionaries thanks to these trade interactions. This world was basically the OG version of a global internet, except instead of fiber optic cables, you had ships, caravans, and brilliant merchants connecting civilizations. And speaking of merchants, these guys were more than just businessmen. They were cultural ambassadors without even trying. When they traveled, they carried stories, scientific ideas, religious beliefs, books, fashion, and occasionally a little gossip. They translated texts, introduced new technologies, and even helped standardize things like accounting and navigation across continents. Picture this. A scholar in Baghdad might read Greek philosophy, Persian astronomy, Indian mathematics, and African geography, all in Arabic translation. And thanks to trade, people from Spain to Indonesia had access to the same intellectual world. That's how connected everything was. So by the 11th century, the Islamic world wasn't just a big territory, it was the world's economic engine, scientific crossroads, and cultural superhighway. But here's where the plot twist comes in. While all this trade was booming, a new force was gathering strength on the edges of the Islamic world. a group of tough, skilled warriors who were about to rewrite the political map. The Turks were coming, and when they stepped onto the stage, nothing, absolutely nothing, would stay the same. All right, so the Islamic world is buzzing with trade and ideas, but now the politics are about to get shaken like a snow globe. Enter the Turks. Imagine a group of insanely skilled horsemen from Central Asia, tough, strategic, loyal, and incredibly good at warfare. For generations, many of them were hired as soldiers by different Islamic rulers. And at some point, those soldiers did what powerful soldiers eventually do. They started calling the shots. The Seljuks were the biggest game changers among them. By the mid-1000s, these guys didn't just join the political scene, they stole the spotlight. They swept into Persia, took Baghdad, and basically said, "Hey, Abbasid Caliph, don't worry, you can keep your job, but we're driving now." And honestly, they were good at it. They brought back stability, boosted trade, revived Persian culture, and strengthened Sunni Islam across their territories. Military-wise, this era introduces two powerhouse institutions. One, the Turkic warrior elite, fast, disciplined, terrifying in battle. And two, the Mamluk system, enslaved soldiers trained from childhood who eventually became some of the most elite fighters in history. What's wild is that this completely changed the political DNA of the Islamic world. Power was shifting away from old Arab elites and into the hands of Turkic dynasties. And trust me, the Seljuks didn't come alone. Their rise created ripple effects that Europe absolutely could not ignore. In fact, those ripples will trigger one of the most dramatic conflicts of the Middle Ages, and that's where we're heading next. Okay, fasten your seatbelt for this one. Because the Crusades were not just knights charging into the Holy Land with swords and crosses. They were messy, political, sometimes shocking, sometimes ironic, and they changed everyone. So here's the quick setup. By the late 1000s, the Seljuks had taken control of Jerusalem and pushed into Byzantine territory. The Byzantine emperor panicked and basically sent Europe a message saying, "Help, like right now." Europe responded with what we now call the First Crusade. Tens of thousands of people, knights, peasants, nobles, the whole squad, marched toward the Middle East. And yes, things got brutal. Cities fell, populations were killed, and political maps were rewritten. But here's the overlooked part. The Crusades weren't just clashes, they were contact points. Europeans encountered advanced science, medicine, architecture, navigation, textiles, food, and they took a lot of it back home. This wasn't a one-way cultural flow either. Muslims observed Europe too, sometimes with amusement, sometimes with curiosity. And then there's Saladin, the kind of leader movies are made about. Wise, strategic, diplomatic, and respected even by his enemies. Under him and other leaders, Muslims pushed back, retook Jerusalem, and reshaped the region's politics. By the time the Crusades ended, nobody was the same. Europe came out more connected to the world, more aware of science, and with tastes for things like sugar, citrus, and new textiles. The Islamic world came out more militarized, more politically fragmented in some areas, and more aware that new powers were rising in the West. And all this was happening right before something even bigger exploded into the region, a force unlike anything the world had ever seen. All right, this is the part where the story takes a dark turn. If the Crusades were a storm, the Mongols were a meteor. In the 1200s, Mongol armies swept west like a force of nature, fast, deadly, and unstoppable. Cities that had existed for centuries vanished in weeks. And in 1258, the unthinkable happened. Baghdad fell. The libraries, the scholars, the culture, the heart of the Islamic world, gone. It hit like a civilizational punch to the stomach. But here's where the plot twist kicks in. The Mongols didn't stay destroyers. Within 1 or 2 generations, many Mongol rulers converted to Islam. The Ilkhanate in Persia, for example, became a major Islamic dynasty. Meanwhile, in Egypt, a brand new power rose up, the Mamluks, elite soldier slaves who overthrew their masters and built one of the strongest Islamic dynasties ever. These guys defeated the Mongols at Ain Jalut, something no one else had pulled off at that point, and protected the Middle East from complete collapse. So yes, the Mongols broke the old world, but the Islamic world rebuilt itself faster and stronger than most people realize. And this rebuilding set the stage for the rise of 3 legendary empires who were about to dominate the next 400 years. Now we're entering a cinematic era. 3 empires, Ottoman, Safavid, and Mughal, rise almost side by side, and each one brings something unique to the table. The Ottomans were the political giants. These guys took Constantinople in 1453, expanded across 3 continents, and built an empire so organized that even European diplomats had to respect it. The Safavids in Persia were the cultural masters. They made Shia Islam the identity of Iran, developed stunning art and architecture, and turned cities like Isfahan into literal postcards. The Mughals in India? Ah, man, these guys made architecture so beautiful it hurts. Think Taj Mahal, giant forts, gardens designed like paradise. They blended Persian, Indian, Central Asian, and Islamic traditions into a masterpiece of culture. These 3 are called the Gunpowder Empires because they mastered early firearms, cannons, and modern military techniques. And together, they dominated the Islamic world from the 1500s to the 1700s, politically, culturally, and economically. But while they were rising, the world around them was changing in ways they couldn't fully predict. Let's take a second to breathe and appreciate something important. Even during wars, invasions, political shifts, and massive empires, the Islamic world never stopped creating. This era gives us poets like Rumi, Hafiz, and Iqbal later on. It gives us philosophers, astronomers, architects, miniature painters, and scholars who kept pushing the limits of knowledge. Even when scientific innovation slowed, cultural production exploded. Turkish, Persian, Arabic, Urdu, these languages produced some of the most beautiful literature ever written. Madrasas continued to educate generations, libraries kept expanding, and cities like Istanbul, Isfahan, Samarkand, and Delhi became centers of art and learning. It's a reminder that civilizations don't just rise and fall like straight lines, they evolve in different areas at different times. Between 1500 and 1800, Europe undergoes a transformation. Scientific revolutions, industrial groundwork, global exploration, banking systems, new warfare technologies. The Islamic empires weren't declining immediately, they just weren't keeping pace with Europe's speed of change. Add in internal strains, succession problems, economic issues, corruption, local rebellions, and the gap grows wider. Europe wasn't just trading anymore, it was colonizing, and the Islamic world was right in the path of that expansion. This sets off a chain reaction that will reshape entire regions. Here's the part that gets overlooked in most history books. The Islamic world didn't just sit around watching Europe get ahead. The Ottomans launched the Tanzimat reforms, modern laws, new schools, military upgrades. Egypt under Muhammad Ali industrialized, built factories, modernized its army, and sent students to Europe. Iran went through the constitutional revolution, debating modern government structures. Intellectuals everywhere were asking the same question: how do we modernize without losing who we are? But reform is messy, and no region could instantly undo centuries of political complexity or the pressure of European colonization. By the 1900s, the old empires were collapsing. The Ottomans fell after World War I, carving out dozens of modern states. Britain and France drew borders that still shape politics today. Meanwhile, South Asia saw the rise of Pakistan and later Bangladesh. Central Asia came under Soviet rule. North Africa fought for independence. The Middle East navigated new identities, oil politics, and rapid state building. This is where the modern Islamic world as we know it truly takes shape. And now we arrive in the present, a world with nearly 2 billion Muslims spread across every continent. The Islamic world is incredibly diverse: Arab, Persian, Turkish, Kurdish, African, South Asian, Central Asian, Southeast Asian, each with unique languages, histories, cultures, and political realities. Modern Muslim-majority countries contribute to science, film, technology, economics, sports, and global culture. At the same time, the region faces real challenges: geopolitics, inequality, conflict, rapid modernization, identity debates. But here's the truth: the story is far from over. The same energy that pushed scholars, sailors, traders, architects, and empires 1,000 years ago is still present today, just evolving in new forms. So, what do 1,000 years of history actually show us? That civilizations aren't static. They rise, adapt, collapse, rebuild, innovate, slow down, accelerate, and constantly reinvent themselves. The Islamic world has been, at different times, a scientific powerhouse, a cultural giant, a political empire, a crossroads of trade, a target of invasion, a center of reform, and now a global community shaping the 21st century. And if this 1,000-year journey proves anything, it's that the Islamic world has never stopped influencing global history, sometimes quietly, sometimes dramatically, but always significantly. And its next chapter, still being written.